Welcome, everybody. Today we have Tom Dufore, of the CEO of the Big Sky franchise team. Tom, welcome to the call.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, Tom, can you share a little bit about the Big Sky franchise team and how it got started?
Sure. So, Big Sky franchise team, we started back in 2016. And really, it came out of my background. I've been helping companies franchise their business my entire career. And so, by chance, just my first job right out of college happened to be at a management consulting company that specialized in helping businesses franchise. And so fell in love with the whole concept and the idea, and really loved the vision of an entrepreneur who creates something. And I've always been a big fan of entrepreneurship, always loved that. And so knew at some point in time I'd want to start my own business. And after going to work for a client for a little while and getting back into the franchising business, ended up starting Big Sky franchise team to help others go through the franchising process to turn their business into a franchise.
Well, hey, can you share for someone who's not familiar with that? What are all the services that you provide in general?
Sure. Well, we have really what I call three core services. The first is for that entrepreneur or small to mid-sized business owner that wants to grow their business through franchising, whether it's the main objective or main structure for growth, or whether it's just complementary to what they're looking for. And that's going through our three-step process that we take our clients through. Step one is our franchise blueprint and helping figure out things like franchise fees and royalties and such. Step two is the rest of the documentation. So helping prepare franchise manuals and marketing plans and brochures and getting clients connected with a great franchise attorney. And step three is helping the client go through an execution and implementing their franchise project. So that's our core overarching service, coupled along with we do offer outsourced small division within our company that offers outsourced franchise sales support solutions. And then the third broad bucket at our company is for an existing franchisor that needs some sort of additional support, and those are generally tend to be very unique problems that these franchisors are facing and need some help and support to sort through that and figure it out.
You know, Tom, I have a really good question for you just from hearing what you just said. Um, Two, one is if I'm a business looking to franchise my business, what how should I be ready to be franchisable? And what is the kind of average amount of money that people should really have on hand before they decide to jump into franchising their business? Because anyone that's going to work with you, they're going to want to know these two things.
Sure, sure. So I'll start from a broader, more general
Hmm.
perspective and then narrow into some specifics for you. So the first is we like to look when we think of a business being ready for franchising. So sometimes it's a little bit like being ready to have a child in your home. Sometimes you're never really fully ready for what comes with being a parent, and a little bit of that happens with being a franchisor as well. There are some things that you can have in place to make sure that you're setting yourself up and putting yourself in the best position possible to move forward. So we'd like to look for when we think of the viability or what you can do to be prepared to franchise. If you look at these three things to help you assess that. Number one is, do you have a profitable prototype? That's a pretty basic, simple one, but we want to replicate something that's working. So from a core, just high level perspective, is the business profitable? Are you making an income out of it? And those kinds of things. Number two is that you have a customer base on a national basis or international basis, meaning you have customers. If you open up franchises or sell franchises in different parts of the country or around the world, that they would have customers that would want to buy your product or service. And um, and then we also want to take a look at the third aspect of this, and that's really just the ability to um, grow the business and train someone how to run and operate the business. So if your business isn't profitable, if it's unique to only your little area wherever you're based out of, and you have no interest in training people, franchising is probably not the business for you. Now, if we break down in a little bit more detail some things for in terms of profitability, if you say, well, okay, well, what does that actually mean if I'm profitable? Well, what we're looking for, what we like to look for, we start breaking that down to say, well, what kind of a return on investment would a franchisee earn if they were to buy your franchise? And so we like to be able to show somewhere at or very close to or above a 20% return on a franchisee's cash investment into your business. And we like to for a franchisee to be able to see that in their third year of operation. We assume a certain amount of there's going to be a break even for a couple of years of getting the business up and going. Hopefully sooner if the business is operated well. So that 20% return on cash investment. And number two, the second part of that is that the owner, if they are an owner operator, that they would be able to make a manager's salary running that business. So they get an income plus a return on their investment. So those are the things that we like to look at and help vet out with our clients. Some clients may not have that totally broken down, and we do that in our first step of our process to help run numbers and validate and really confirm that's the case. And then in terms of dollar amount to say, well, now I want to franchise my business. I think your second question was how much cash or money should I plan on budgeting or spending to really make a good effort in launching or growing my business.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, the number that I usually like to use or a range of numbers, I would budget somewhere between $100 to $150,000 to be spent over the course of your first 12 to 24 months, maybe 36 months, depending on when you start marketing for your franchising. And that would cover all of your expenses to hire consultants, lawyers, CPAs, all of the professionals like us to help you through that. Plus, have a marketing budget, a large enough marketing budget to, I like to budget around 5 franchisees into your marketing budget. So that way, then maybe you get lucky and you get 7, 8, or 10, or maybe you underperform, but you still are able to sell 2 or 3 franchisees in the process. In today's world, the average marketing spend to acquire one franchisee is just over $10,000. And it's been around that number for a few years now, a little less, a little more, but somewhere in that number. So that's a kind of a general rule of thumb if you're trying to budget out, okay, well, I'm looking for around 5, 10 franchisees, just multiply by 10,000, and that'll give you a good sense of about what kind of a financial commitment
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need to make to acquire those franchisees.
Right, because I think some people come in just thinking, I have a killer business, we can knock this out of the park, but they don't realize that there's going to be expenses. And also, they were running a successful business, but learning how to sell a successful business and then replicate your concept with a completely new person, those are new and those are things that you may not have necessarily done before. And so you're going to have to like wear a lot of hats and, work a little harder for the first couple of years, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have a free download called The 9 Pitfalls to Avoid When Franchising Your Business. And it's at 9pitfalls.com. And one of the items on there, and this is just a collection of what really my team and I have observed over the years of doing this, where do new franchisors or startup companies, where are those pitfalls? Where do we consistently see these problems? And you hit one of them right on. You nailed it. It's these the new franchisor forgets the startup mindset that they forget because what you just said, they've been operating a successful business oftentimes for many years, and they forget that, oh, I'm in a startup now. This is a new business. While it's related to my main business, it's a new business. I have to learn how to market and sell and train and onboard and support. It's a learning curve and a learning process to sort through all of that. So I absolutely agree with you on that.
Well, what makes Big Sky different from other companies that do these types of things?
Sure. So there are a lot of great service providers in this space. So if you're hiring and working with a great reputable company, you can't go wrong when you're engaging with someone. I like to describe how we work and what makes us a little unique and different is we really are purpose driven in terms of our focus. Our overarching purpose is to inspire and foster greatness. We have a core belief that every person and organization can and should be great, and we live that through our three values. Number one's win-win relationships, and we really take that to heart. So we want to find the win-win in all situations, and obviously, franchising, you're always looking for that win-win-win along the way. And those are some of the pieces that make us different. And then our three-step proven process that I did touch on lightly there, that we take our clients through to help them go through and franchise effectively and efficiently. And the last piece that I guess I would say is really our focus and emphasis on educating our prospective clients or just people who never even hire us, but just producing content, much like what you're doing with your program. We really consider ourselves educators, and we are a content producing organization. We produce uh, typically one, two, three new pieces of content every single week that's coming out. We've produced almost 300 total podcasts, webinars, you name it, that we have available out in the space. And it's all available for free. There's no cost for it, and it's not some cheesy infomercial. Our goal is to really help educate and differentiate. So for anyone that's interested in that, our podcast is Multiply Your Success, and we have a second podcast, Franchise Your Business, and we've got goodness, hundreds of YouTube videos and all kinds of things available for someone who's interested in just learning more or starting to gather more information on franchising or just in growing your business in general.
Well, thank you, Tom. And um, can you share some examples of some brands that you've helped, like what's happened for them, what you helped them with, and all that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll highlight just a few. One that I always find interesting is a brand called Lean Kitchen Company. They're a healthy meal prep organization. You go in, you basically buy pre-made healthy meals that you can take home, and many of their customers like to actually take that. That becomes their lunch for the week ahead, or sometimes it's dinner, whatever it might be for them. And when they came to us, they had a couple locations, and started selling franchise and really took off. They sold a whole bunch of franchises in the very beginning. They actually had to pause because they wanted to make sure that they were onboarding the franchise. I think the electricity that they caught them by surprise a little bit. So they paused growth for a while and got things going back. And today they have over 70 franchises in their system and growing. So it's really exciting to see what they're doing from just a couple of locations. And I'd say another one is a house flipping franchise called New Again Houses. That one's really fun. Was involved with them from the very beginning, early on, and worked with their leadership team and growing and building and helping them grow. And today they're fast approaching. I believe it's about 80 or so franchises in their network and going. And one that's interesting is called Shub Beauty. You probably have never heard of that. They do eyebrow threading, and they've grown really quickly over the last few years as well. And they're up over 100 franchises from just a few when they had started working with us. So some pretty exciting growth to see organizations like that go through. And I always like sharing some of the fun stories where a brand goes from 0 to 50 or 0 to 75 over the course of a few years. And the reason I like it is it's a pretty sizable organization at that point, that for the most part, many people still have not heard of yet. It's not a household brand name. And so I always think it's exciting for someone that's maybe thinking of franchising to realize that it's not that far out of reach. It's hard to look at a company like a McDonald's or one of the other mega franchise brands and think, boy, how do I get from my one or two locations, whatever I have, to thousands or tens of thousands. It's hard to fathom that. So anyway, just a few examples to share there.
No, I love that. And there are companies out there that they've been successful with a location, but maybe their brand just isn't taking off. And you've probably seen some examples of what makes a brand catchy, what makes people drawn to it, versus just seeming like everybody else. What are some ideas that you could share with people to make their business stand out so it might catch on like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I used to think that I would have a great answer for you
Hmm.
on that over the years ago. And the longer I do this, the more I realize that some of the real electric growth in franchising that allows someone to go from zero to uh, hundreds of units in a few years is it. it I don't know what that magic secret recipe is. If I could bottle that and figure it out, we'd be doing some things different. Obviously, there are some things that you can do can to help better manage that. If you're not catching that electric growth, if you don't just catch on fire for some reason, that's part of it. Certainly, being able to give a direct answer, certainly being able to clearly articulate your offer and and to tie into the what the consumer preferences are. I would say that for many of these brands that have taken off, even some of the groups that I mentioned earlier, where some of their initial growth really happened by tapping into their own referral base, meaning their friends, family, customers, people who are connected to the brand that already have an affection, a trust, an affinity with their group. And that's one thing I guess I would say that uh, organizations that do grow, that is common, that they are growing from within. It's franchising is no different than any business that you might currently be in. Your best customer generally comes from a referral. A referral from a satisfied customer, from a family member, a friend. Somehow there was a referral connection, and franchising is no different. Your best connection is going to come from a referral. So if you really want to tap into it to help take control of your own destiny for growing more rapidly, is spending time developing that social community or your social capital that you've already established. It's sitting right there. The hard part is that the owner or the founder oftentimes doesn't want to give up their time to tap into that. If you're willing to give up a little bit of your time, because only the founder or the people that are close in the organization that have that social capital, that you're able to tap into that. And again, I don't want this to the goal is to not manipulate or take advantage of your friends and family. Okay, that is not the goal. The goal is to basically let them know what you're doing, because you'd be surprised how many people have been thinking about maybe starting their own business sometime, and they already know, like, and trust you as a person, that they know that they can look to use your business model to accomplish their goal or their dreams.
Hmm. And when you when I work with different companies, so as a broker, I'll work with clients, and those clients are looking to find a franchise. And the thing that I have to tell them, if you're working with a younger brand, they're going to have less organization or structure. When you work with the bigger the brand, the more structure, and sometimes it seems like quite a bit of structure, almost like it's a job. But and so you might have like a 6-step process with more of a developed brand. It'll be broken down specifically by training and marketing and economics and all this. But when you work with a very young brand, especially if the owner himself is trying to sell it himself, they're just like, they want to talk it out for 20 minutes and then say, I'll see you in 2 weeks and we'll get this baby signed. And that's not a sales process. People don't make $250,000 decisions on a simple conversation. And can you give me your thoughts on kind of advising people on that whole thing of, having that structure, what it should be and why it's important?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that problem that you described is one we've seen over and over and over and over again. And it's one of the reasons we actually created our franchise sales training workshop to actually take our clients through it. And we created specifically a workshop and not it's not a class, it's not a course, it is a workshop because it is a 7-hour workshop with a 160 plus page workbook that when they go through, they're actually doing work during that because I've worked with enough founders and owners that if they're not doing it while they're sitting still, it's not going to get done at that exact moment. They're not going to come back to it later. So this is helping them build out and map out a sales process to achieve ultimately the goal of helping them sell a franchise. A franchise is just a series, selling a franchise, in my experience, is it's a series of just mini steps along the way. And what new emerging franchisors struggle with, and you encapsulated it so well, is these new franchisors think I just have my one little 20-minute call or an hour call or maybe two. And why haven't they bought? Why aren't they buying this? Don't they see all the amazing things that are possible with it? And the reality is they don't, because the founder sees it because they created the business and they've got years and years of experience of working day to day in that business. So of course the founder sees that, but that prospect doesn't. And so there's a lot more that questions, scheduling things like discovery days and having meetings and meeting with training staff. It's something that it's not just a sales pitch. That maybe that happens very early on where you're trying to get someone excited about your brand, but the franchise sales cycle is long. It's not uncommon for a franchisee to enter your sales pipeline and take 12 months to close. That's not uncommon because life happens for these buyers and the franchise buyers. And Lance, you know this with your experience in the franchise brokerage world. Uh, they have their own mental hurdles to overcome and get through about buying a franchise. A lot of times, it's not necessarily can I make money doing this or can I make a return that I'm looking for? A lot of times they see the value in that. It's the mental hurdle. Can I convince my husband or my wife? Are they convinced? Or maybe I'm caring for an ailing parent and mom or dad took a spill and boy, that really set me back for 3 months. Or I've seen this happen. This has been one of the things for these buyers that the founders or the franchisor, new franchisors don't maybe recognize is that candidate is one promotion away from leaving the franchise candidacy pool. They get that promotion or that bonus at work that they've been waiting for, or their spouse does, and now all of a sudden they say, you know what? I'm not as motivated anymore to do this. So it's a really fragile thing for that budding entrepreneur. And I always describe franchising is the confidence elixir to a budding entrepreneur. It helps them realize that they can do this if they follow someone else's system. And as that new franchisor, your job when you're selling them, it's not really sales, it's education. It's educating them on how you and your system will be able to help them accomplish their goals and what they're looking to achieve. So understanding, do they want to, if are they motivated by, are they really interested for earning potential? My experience for a lot of franchisees is they're really looking for oftentimes a lifestyle. How does this fit in with my life? And how do I want to be able to coach my kids' baseball team or participate in whatever it might be, at whatever stage of life they're in. And uh, franchisors, new franchisors especially, that have a hard time taking off, miss the boat on that because they're focused on, I'm so great as this franchise offering. Everyone wants to buy my business, and you're very often the business is great, but we need to communicate that in a different way to that candidate so that they understand the value that you're actually providing and how what you offer is franchising. They're borrowing, they're renting your name and business system. So your name and business system is for rent. So when you're renting it to them, how does what you're renting help that franchise candidate accomplish their goals for what they're doing. So, and I don't know if that's helpful, but I I guess leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And there's so, like you said, there's so many variables that hold things up. You said the job thing, getting fired could be a positive or a negative. Getting a promotion, positive or negative. The other spouse could be the talking them into it or talking them out of it, and funding. Depending on their credit and their ability to get a loan. I've seen loans take forever. It's just I've seen car accidents. I've seen people get cancer. Just every single thing. Life is happening while they're going through this, and you're not always their number one priority. So it's something to just be ready for. Have your mindset ready, and be focused on it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is one of those things where the oftentimes the new emerging franchisor, the founder is used to working hard, and basically if they put a little sweat equity and elbow grease into the business, that just magically stuff starts happening, sales start happening, because that's how they started their company. And in franchise sales, the founder can get discouraged quickly if they're expecting immediate results. And so patience really is a virtue when it comes to in most things in life, but especially in franchise sales.
hmm And I got one last question for you that I think would be really good, and that is, um, people who want to buy a franchise. As a franchisor, there's this balance because some of them are looking for somebody who exactly follows the system and kind of does stays within the rails really tight. But as a with a franchise, people are really looking. These are entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs that don't want to just go out and figure it out on their own, but they're not looking for the boss they just had where they were working. They're still looking to have some sort of autonomy and run this business, even though it is your brand and your structure. So what's your advice with the franchisors on understanding that balance of they are looking for people who will follow the system, but they are entrepreneurs and they do not want a boss?
Yes, that's exactly right. So it is for my take on the first 10 franchisees that come into a system sometimes is a little different than other folks' advice in our industry and in our space of franchising. But I'm a big believer that when you're a franchisor, bringing on your first 10 franchisees, it's essential to get those folks into your system. And naturally, these people oftentimes will be more entrepreneurial versus a franchisee that buys in at number 100 or number 500 as your system grows and develop, even different from franchisee number 20. Oftentimes these first 10, they like being into the new business, in a new franchise opportunity. And because they have that, they're a little bit more willing to take risks or accept risk. They're also gonna operate your business that way. They're probably gonna be deviate from your system a little more often. You're gonna have some correcting to do with them. Those franchisees are also, though, going to provide to you new ideas and ways to reinvent what you're doing or make what you're doing better for the next franchisee, because those first 10 franchisees help teach you how to be a franchisor. They teach you how to effectively build your training. So training, we can only give our when it gets built out initially before you have any franchise, it's your best educated guess on how to do it. It's usually fairly close, but you're going to learn a lot from these first 10 as you sell, train, and support them, so that beyond those 10, you really are able to start identifying now what kind of background or profile, franchisee profile, is successful in your system, and you can learn a lot from there, from that. So you have to be willing to that just my opinion, you need to be willing to recognize that every franchisee is not going to be you, the founder. In fact, most won't. Most founders I described, they're going to be they would be in the top 10% out of 100 or 1,000 franchises in their network. They'd be top 10%. Most franchisees, you look at a bell curve, they're going to be around that 50th percentile. And so you have to accept that reality that comes in. And there will be those that come in out of those 10, you'll probably have one or two that are absolute superstars that run the business way better than you do, and one or two that are probably going to drive you nuts and that just really are difficult to manage and work with and support. So anyway, that's I guess how I'd answer that question there.
Absolutely. Well, I learned a lot today. Thank you, Tom, for joining us. Anybody who's interested in speaking with Tom and learning more about Big Sky, we do have a link for you, which is franpro.co/Big Sky, and that'll take you over there. Tom, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Lance, for the opportunity. Really appreciate you and all the work you're doing.